and he's the answer to the trivia question. Here's Carr. Take a shot, why wouldn't you? And it is caught, and it is a touchdown. 4 consecutive scoring possessions. Pitch it to Richard. Stays in for the touchdown. Raiders expand on their lead. Daniel Carlson, the leg, and plenty of it.
What a game. All I got to say is, can you guys imagine making millions of dollars being in your 20s and living in Vegas? You would have never went out. You would have been at home all
Sounds
the
like
time.
a recipe for disaster.
Crickets, right? What's
About
going on,
right.
everybody? Welcome into First Take, still here in the Seaport. You know this man needs no introduction. Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman. I'm Molly Karen Rose. Guys, John Gruden and his Raiders get the NFL's first ever win in the city of Vegas, and it wasn't a cheap one, taking down Drew Brees and the Saints. Derek Carr, 3 pass TDs. Stephen A., these Raiders are now 2-0. Are you buying them?
No, I'm not. I'm not buying them as of yet because they were the 25th ranked defense against the pass last year. Thus far in these first 2 games, they ranked 29th. That secondary is still a huge question mark in a division that has Patrick Mahomes in it. And, oh, by the way, some kid named Justin Herbert who just showed up on the scene and in his first career game threw for 311 yards. If you're going to be able to throw the football effectively, then guess what? The Raiders are going to have a problem with you. That's really what this comes down to. What I will say to you, however, is I am buying into Derek Carr. Derek Carr is playing with a chip on his shoulders. Derek Carr is feeling like he's being disrespected. And the reality of the situation is he has a legitimate case. Before he got injured a few years ago, he was a top 2 candidate for league MVP honors, the way that he was playing. Obviously, since injuries derailed his season, the Raiders went into the playoffs. He got hurt like about, a game or 2 left in the regular season. Ultimately, he couldn't perform in the playoffs, and they got blitzed, obviously, by, I think it was the Houston Texans that took him out. In the end, what it comes down to is this. He is back. The last couple of years has been a struggle. Last year was John Gruden's first year coaching this dude. He's 2-0 thus far. He's completed 73.5% of his passes. He's got 4 touchdowns. He doesn't have a single interception. That's coming off 21 touchdowns, and just 8 interceptions last year. I'm just looking at Derek Carr, and I'm saying he deserves the benefit of the doubt. He deserves us looking at him and saying, excuse me, the brother can play. Let's see what he's got. I wouldn't go as far as the hyperbole that John Gruden engaged in. He's great. No, he has great potential. He could be great. We shall see. And with Jacobs running the football and with Waller, this brother Waller is special. One of the special tight ends. He ain't Travis Kelce or George Kittle yet, but he might be come the end of this season. He's that special. Offensively, I look at them. I believe in them. But defensively, with that secondary, Max, is a huge question mark for me.
I'm actually buying the Raiders. I'm not buying Carr yet. I'll explain what I mean. I think, first of all, let's look at Derek Carr because you brought him up. He was an excellent young quarterback to start his career, basically. And then he stalled, and then he looked bad for a while, and now he looks like he's ascending again. Well, why is that? It's coaching. This is the NFL. There are a few select players on the far end of a bell curve, right? That the really excellent ones, Aaron Donald or Patrick Mahomes, no matter where they go, they're going to be great. They're going to be great. If Tom Brady would have went to any team, he'd have been a great quarterback. That's intrinsic in him. The greatest of all time, he had Belichick, right? Even Patrick Mahomes, who'd be great wherever he is, as good as he is now, he has Andy Reid. Coaching makes a difference, and that's for the elite players. In the middle, even if you're on the high end of the middle, if you plotted everyone on a bell curve, meaning a few are really good, a few are terrible, most people fall somewhere in the middle, whether toward better or toward worse. Even players toward the better side of that, call Derek Carr one of those guys, are so dependent upon coaching. So what I see from Carr is the opposite of what I see from Carson Wentz. Both had a lot of success early. Carson Wentz still won't really follow the coach's game plan, it seems to me. Is trying to force things to happen. Whereas Derek Carr started dinking and dunking more. Hit his tight end a whole bunch of times. Didn't make mistakes. He played smart football. I understand why Gruden's so happy with him. But that's the reason I'm not buying Carr yet. I got to see him do it longer. We've seen this from him before. Look really good. And then periods where he didn't. Let me see. The Raiders, though, Stephen A., I attribute Carr's success right now to Gruden and the coaching staff. To me, it's an indication of that. So I'm buying the Raiders. I'm buying the Raiders to be a competitive football team throughout the course of this season. Are they better than the Kansas City Chiefs? Nobody's better than the Kansas City Chiefs, not with the money on the line. I'm not buying them to win the division, but I believe the Raiders will be competitive throughout this year. And when we get late in the season, they'll still be looking at the playoff hunt. They'll still be in the hunt whether or not they make it. I'm buying them. This was not them a couple years ago. I'm buying their trajectory right now.
Well, they got better talent. They had an exceptional 2019 draft. They did a great job this 2020 season. Mike Mayock, even though they peeled him from the NFL Network, he had no resume whatsoever. Don't get me started with that. Nevertheless, that does not take away from the fact that he has done a damn good job. And the person that should be ashamed of themselves is Antonio Brown, because imagine what they would have been if they had him. If you've got Edwards and you've got Waller and you've got Ruggs and you had Antonio Brown, could you imagine what we would potentially be saying about the Oakland Raiders? Antonio Brown, need to think about that. Might have been a bit too quick in being a malcontent. That might have been a really good situation for him. But nevertheless, you got a running game in Jacobs. He's a workhorse. We understand that. He's not some guy, breakaway kind of guy, but he's a workhorse, and you can rely on him. I love the fact that you got Abrams on the defensive side of the ball. He's a rough rider. I love him. Got scared me yet last night when he ran into that mobile thing right there. He was laying motionless, scared the living hell out of me. I'm glad to see that he's all right. But in the end, it does come down to their secondary, and the reason why it's their secondary is because think about this. If you're talking about Baltimore, you're talking about an improved Lamar Jackson and his ability to throw the football, not just run. And by the way, if you want to neutralize him, you got to spy on him, keep a spy or two on him because he's so electrifying athletically. As a result, it's going to compromise your secondary. Big Ben Roethlisberger is back. He's going to be throwing the football. Cam Newton reminded us he can still throw the football. Patrick Mahomes is Mahomes. Herbert has busted onto the scene. Tennessee is a different ball game because you're relying on Derrick Henry for the most part. I just look at the Raiders, and I look at a guy like Derek Carr. He's 4 years removed from his MVP caliber season, and we get all of that. But even when he's considered to have a bad year, like in 2016 or whatever, he had completed 69% of his passes. When they went 4-12 that year, he completed 68.9% of his passes. He threw 19 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. It wasn't god-awful, but he's relatively pedestrian in terms of not being risque. When you've got a guy like Waller to rely upon, you've got somebody in those short intermediate
safety
routes
valve.
To do some things. It's a safety valve, and that helps him.
But look, if you're going to say where do they place in the AFC, I'm not buying them as a top 3 or 4 AFC team.
Well, I'm just talking about playoffs, Max. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, let's just look at their division, though, right?
It's interesting now.
KC is in a class by themselves. The Chargers have a defense, and Justin Herbert looked like a real prospect, like the guy we thought would be drafted number 1 a couple years ago before he didn't have a great season, stayed in college. But he's still a rookie quarterback. I don't look at the Chargers and go, boy, you really have to worry about the Chargers yet. The Broncos are looking for a quarterback, and by the way, won't even consider Colin Kaepernick, apparently, right? I don't see this division as some murderer's row. So the Raiders could be, notwithstanding the fact that the Chiefs are the class of the NFL, let alone the division, the Raiders are going to be competitive, I think. Ain't going to win next week. Patriots, Bill Belichick got something for them, I'm sure. They'll be 2-1 after 3 weeks, but that's the kind of season they're going to have, I think. Well, looking at a playoff spot the entire time.
If you're buying the bottom line is, are you talking about them in the playoffs or not? I'm not saying that yet. I think their offense will be formidable defensively. That secondary is a huge question mark.
But we'll certainly be watching them. They're interesting. The Raiders scored on 12 of their 18 drives, the highest rate in the NFL. And obviously, guys, later we got to talk about these Saints. A little concerning what we saw from Drew Brees. Is it a blip or a trend? We will get into that. Coming up, First Take just getting started here back in New York City from the Seaport District. Major injuries in week 2 to mega players. Who